Good morning. Good morning, and welcome. Stacy starting out strong with a emoji typo. It is day 11 of the Chad Daybell trial.
All right, Chris.
Chad wearing a burgundy tie today. With a blue tinted shirt. We shall see how the state proceeds with its case.
Here's our President County for your honor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bailiff. Please be seated. All right, good morning. We're back on the record on case CR 2221. Left off yesterday with Detective Kaya Kamanu on the stand in direct examination. I believe the state's still proceeding with more direct. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay, if you'd like to continue with testimony, Detective Kaya Kamanu is here. You can go ahead and take the stand and we'll allow you to continue on direct. I will note also, I received all of the juror affirmations and the jury is all here properly seated. So thank you again, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, for continuing to follow the court's instructions as you retire home each night. And with that, Ms. Blake, once you're ready, you can continue with your direct.
Your Honor, may I be handed back State's Exhibit 107B?
Yes.
Thank you for asking, Stacy. I am feeling in good spirits, but if I'm honest, a little nasally.
Detective Kaikamanu, when we left off yesterday, we had been talking about some searches linked to a Homer J. Maximus account. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you had prepared an exhibit summarizing some of the searches that you located on that account. Is that correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, I believe we left off with the state having asked permission to publish State's 107B.
Yeah, we had the tech issue. I believe and hope that's all been sorted out. They worked on it for a while, so I think we've got things working. If those monitors don't work, also please make an indication, jurors, and you can publish.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I sure hope they got those tech issues worked out. Because every time they wanted to show an exhibit, they had to take like a 10-minute break.
If I may have just a moment, let's see if I can get this fixed.
Uh-oh, it's an exhibit. We might need another 10-minute break. So whatever it was I had, Stacy, it's still a tiny bit lingering, which is annoying. Can't seem to get it totally away, but I'll live. Thank you for asking. I hope you all are doing well. I hope you are all feeling well. Please remember to hit the like button. Who's going to be our right okay counter? Just kidding. Nobody has to do that. Yeah, it's going around. I've even seen people walking around with masks. Morning, Tess Mac. it looks like we're going to have this same thing here where every time they want to show an exhibit, they have to figure out this tech issue, which takes, it's like 10 minutes per exhibit. 10-minute break per exhibit. There needs to be some tech Superman that travels around these courts and deals with. The problem is that every court has a different tech solution. And well, Tess Mac, this is the first time hearing about it. So I'm going to have to look into it. I don't know the details. Is it which one is it? I mean, doesn't he have a few of them? Is it from New York? Is it from LA? That sucks, Stacy. In New York, really? Does that mean does that mean he's going to be freed? Because I thought he was convicted on others as well. I'm going to have to look into that. For whatever the reason is, it must be devastating for the victim. And what did they do? Find that the victim... I hope they didn't find that the victim was... I don't know. I feel very unqualified to say anything right now because I haven't seen it yet, but I'll look into it. It's just, it makes my stomach kind of queasy knowing that. Good morning, hippie. So for those of you coming in, they ended court early yesterday. They ended... I'm feeling myself feeling mad about that test map, but I always reserve my, feelings about things like that without knowing, but I'm feeling myself feeling anger. Which hearing, Solo, about Weinstein or about this? So anyway, getting back to Chad Daybell. Yesterday they ended early so that they could deal with this tech issue related to evidence, because every time they wanted to show evidence, they had to futz around with the technology. And here we are again. They want to show evidence, and they're futzing with the technology. And Judge just said that it should have been...
Thank you for your patience, everyone. Sorry about that.
Oh my God.
Detective Kaikamanu, does this look like the start of the PowerPoint presentation that you created?
Yes.
And can you remind the jury, who was that Homer J. Maximus account ultimately associated with?
Alex Cox.
And if we turn to the first slide, can you see the date on there?
Yes.
And what date is that?
October 8th, 2019.
And can you remind the jurors when the attempted shooting of Tammy Daybell occurred?
October 9th, 2019.
What is it about these searches on October 8th that caught your attention?
These searches, Alex Googled the 100-yard drop to 200 and 100 to 300.
And when we talk about a drop, can you explain what that is?
During shooting and sighting in your rifle with your scope, depending on how far you're out in yardage, a lot of times you will dial in that scope to a precise point of impact of your bullet. The drop of the bullet, the further you're out, the drop of the bullet tends to go down a little bit.
So essentially the idea being that from where you're standing, that's going to be where the bullet will go and where it will ultimately land or hit a target.
Correct.
And also in there, it looks like it was a 6.5 Grendel specifically.
Yes.
What kind of gun was recovered from an apartment associated with Alex Cox?
Alexander Arms 6.5 Grendel.
And then it looks like there's another date on there, October 9th of 2019. Is that correct?
Correct.
And there's some additional searches there. What about those caught your attention?
He searches just different uppers for ARs, muzzle energy brake of a 6.5 Grendel, and frog sizing of frog tog pants.
And breaking those down a little bit and actually going back to October 8th, was there anything else other than it being the 6.5 Grendel that stood out to you with these particular searches?
Not at this time to me, no.
And then on the October 9th, we've talked about the 6.5 Grendel. What about the frog tog sizing caught your attention?
There were some frog togs purchased on this same day at a different location.
And from your investigation, did you learn anything in relation to where those frog togs may have been purchased?
Yes.
And where was that?
Sportsman's Warehouse in Idaho Falls, Idaho.
Did you learn anything in relation or review anything in relation to where a device associated with Alex Cox was located that same day?
Yes.
And where was that?
Sportsman's Warehouse in Idaho Falls, Idaho.
Do you know what color those frog tog pants were?
Black.
And then when we go to the next slide, can you read the date of these searches into the record?
October 10th, 2019.
And can you explain what about these searches stood out to you?
On this day was after the attempted shooting on Tamara Daybell. And the next day, he is searching if an AR functions in cold weather, how an AR functions in cold weather. Hornady one shot shooting in cold weather. Also had to prep your AR to shoot in cold weather. He also is searching if mag rings shrink in cold weather.
Do you reside around the Fremont County area?
I do.
Have you resided there for some time?
Yes.
What are Octobers generally like in that part of the state?
Microphone, please, Mr. Pryor.
Objection, Judge. It's calling for speculation. He's talking in generalities and he has no testimony or knowledge of what the weather was like at any time this particular year.
Your Honor, he testified that he lives in the area and has lived there for some time. I think it would be within his
agree, and
personal knowledge.
I'll overrule.
Thank you. If you can answer.
Can you repeat that?
What are the Octobers generally like in that part of the state?
Octobers get fairly cold in that month. Sometimes prior to that month, Octobers in eastern Idaho are hit and miss.
Do you know what the temperature was on that day?
I believe it was 26 degrees.
Judge, I'd like some foundation as to how he knew that.
Ms. Blake, knowing the precise, I agree, degree temperature would require additional foundation.
Did you do anything to look into what the temperature was that day?
I did.
What did you do?
I Googled and got on to the National Weather Service and put in that date, October 9th, 2019, to see what the temperatures were during that day,
And what were the temperatures?
26 degrees.
And if we go to the next slide, can you read the date of these searches into the record?
October 12th, 2019.
What about these particular searches caught your attention?
So this was after the attempted shooting on October 9th. On this search, he's Googling how to attach a ghillie suit, a cover to a ghillie suit. He's also Googling if a 6.5 Grendel will shoot through a windshield. He Googles the penetration through Dodge Dakota, 2008 Dodge Dakota steel body thickness, the thickness on the doors of a 2008 Dodge Dakota, and the gauge thickness of, or how thick 22 gauge steel is.
And if we break these down a little bit, can you explain what a ghillie suit is?
A ghillie suit's used a lot in the military, snipers. It's a cover that they can use for cover while in the weeds, the brush, the trees, so they're not seen.
And what about a 2008 Dodge Dakota stood out?
Tammy Daybell and Chad Daybell had a 2004 Dodge Dakota registered to them.
And again, a 6.5 Grendel was recovered from an apartment associated with Alex Cox.
Correct.
As part of your investigation, did you also look at some shooting range records?
I did.
Do you recall which shooting range you reviewed records from?
It was a sportsman's club located in St. Anthony, Idaho.
And Your Honor, I have what's been marked as States Exhibit 396 and 396A.
Uh-oh, here comes some exhibits. I hope there's not another 10-minute break. Good morning, everybody who've come in.
Your Honor, I just handed the bailiff a courtesy copy for defense counsel, a copy for the court, and a courtesy copy for Your Honor.
All right.
Well, of course, Stacy, prophets can't drive old cars, especially when they're recruiting the 144,000.
And Detective Kaikamano, if you just look through those particularly Exhibit 396A. And Your Honor, while he's looking through those, I believe these are a stipulated to exhibit. The first exhibit 396 would be the affidavit of business records, and exhibit 396A would be the actual logs.
That is correct, Judge.
All right. Those have been offered now and admitted. So 396 and 396A are both admitted exhibits.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
And Detective, do those appear to be the records that you reviewed?
Yes.
Both Chad
Were you able to determine whether or not it appeared Alex Cox had been at that gun range?
Yes.
And what did you determine?
Alex Cox didn't sign in as Alex Cox on these sheets. He did sign in as C. Quint, which C. Quint, or I should say C.P. Quint, is the license plate on his Ford F-150 truck. So on the sign-on sheet, the only letter that's missing in that is the P.
And were you able to determine how many times this C. Quint or Alex Cox had visited that gun range?
Yes,
How many times had he visited?
5 times through October 7th to the 15th of 2019.
And again, the attempted shooting of Tammy Daybell was which day?
October 9th, 2019,
And what day was Tammy Daybell pronounced dead?
October 19th, 2019.
As part of your investigation, did you also review some data recovered from a phone associated with Tammy Daybell?
I did.
And Your Honor, I have what's been marked as States Exhibit 108. It is a affidavit of business records in relation to Tammy Daybell's phone.
Uh-oh, every exhibit runs the risk of causing a 10-minute break. I hope
Give us a moment, Ms.
you are
Blake.
all
We're gonna
well.
Verify the number here.
I hope your pets are all well and your children. And your families.
I think we've already got 108 admitted.
Well, yep, one of those breaks.
Your Honor, may we approach briefly?
Yes, actually, let me have the bailiff hand you the admitted exhibit for your review. Yeah.
I think Tessmac, I think it's a Elmo. The kind where you can put things on top of on a glass, and then there's a camera on top of it and it projects to the screen. Fairly new. It can be temperamental. I've seen them be temperamental. Hello, Harlot. Usually it's what I've seen happening in these courts is that it's usually the connectivity to the various devices that people bring in to and from. So it's like, the Mac or PC or mobile devices or thumb drives that people bring in to plug in for exhibits. And, usually the prosecutors who are always presenting in that court have the right technology because they're always presenting in the court. And it's usually the defense that's at the disadvantage because the defense lawyers don't always have that access to the technology at the court. But
All right, Your Honor, I think we have sorted that out. So States Exhibit 108 was already admitted.
Yes.
The state would ask to have the witness shown State's Exhibit 291.
Oh, that's cute, solo sock. I love kids. I love kids. Oh, kids are so cute. That's why I love that one clip of that kid on the stand who says yes, please about marijuana. Because he's just a kid to me, you know, even though he's like 19 or 20. He's a kid to me and he just slipped up on the stand.
Do you recall reviewing that particular email?
Yes, I do.
And Your Honor, there is a stipulation to admit the contents of Tammy Daybell's phone. This is one of the items retrieved from her phone. So the state would move for admission of Exhibit 291.
Any objection?
No, Judge.
All right, Exhibit 291 is admitted.
And Your Honor, the state would ask for permission to publish.
You can publish.
Yeah, by the time this court gets around to showing these exhibits, we could make our own
And
projector.
Detective, are you able to see who sent this email?
Yes.
And who was that?
Tammy Daybell from tammy.daybell@gmail.com.
And are you able to see who it was sent to?
Yes.
And who is that?
Mark Daybell at mark.daybell@missionary.org.
And can you see the date that this shows it as having been sent?
Yes. On 10/13/2019 at 2:38, or correction, 2:23:18.
And Your Honor, I'm going to pause to allow the jurors to read.
Okay, thank you.
I would read that for y'all, but I can't. It's too blurry. It's too small and blurry. Bad too, because it kind of looks important. So it's from Tammy Daybell to Mark Daybell. Yeah, that's true, Harlot. Do they still sell those push-ups in the at the ice cream truck? Mark, I believe, is her brother, but don't quote me on that. If someone in the chat knows who Mark Daybell is, and I may go ahead and look this up. I'm going to go ahead and look this up while we're waiting, while we're looking at the.
And Detective, this was sent just 4 days after that attempted shooting. Is that correct?
Correct.
And when we look at that second paragraph, are you able to see approximately what time Tammy says she arrived home that night?
Yes, approximately 9:15.
And are you able to see in there, actually, let me back up. Can you read the last couple sentences there, starting with "I looked up"?
I looked up thinking it was Dad or Garth to help me carry stuff in. Nope, it was a guy dressed all in black with a ski mask on, pointing a rifle at me.
And Your Honor, again, I'm going to pause to allow the jurors to read.
Okay, Mark Daybell is one of their kids. Mark Daybell is one of Tammy and Chad's children. Okay, and he's grown and does not live with them. So that's one answer.
And Detective Kaikamanu, could you read the paragraph starting with, "I think I was," that first full paragraph into the record?
I think I was a bit in shock because I just said, "What do you think you were doing?" Then I noticed the rifle was actually a paintball gun. It had a hopper on top. The guy started pulling the trigger, and I could hear the clicking and whooshing sound of an empty paintball gun. He stayed standing by the back of the car, just pulling the trigger while pointing the gun at me. For some reason, I just kept asking him what he thought he was doing. At that point, I was actually more annoyed than scared because he was standing between me and the door and he didn't step towards me or even say anything. The scared part came after when my brain thought of things that could have happened.
And Your Honor, again, I'm going to pause to allow the jurors to read.
All right.
You know, I've been looking for the actual letter so I can read it myself. There is so much discovery in this trial. It's been it's not easy to find specific things. And this is one I haven't seen before.
And Detective Kaikamanu, could you read the last sentence of that second paragraph starting with "on Thursday night"?
On Thursday night, though, I didn't go to Zumba because I was quite understandably did not want to be out after dark alone.
And I'm going to go back to that paragraph that we were looking at previously. In there, Tammy refers to the paintball gun as a rifle. Is that correct?
Correct?
And she specifically references a hopper.
Yes.
And that's in reference to why she thought it was maybe a paintball gun.
Yes.
She also indicates the guy started pulling the trigger. Is that correct?
Yes.
In this, do you see where she indicates that she was scared?
Yes.
And in that last sentence that we just talked about, she indicated she was scared to go out alone the next night.
Yes.
And Your Honor, I'm going to ask to publish State's Exhibit 281A. It was admitted yesterday.
Okay, you can publish.
And Detective, we talked about this firearm yesterday. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And where was this recovered from?
This was recovered from Alex Cox's apartment.
And can you remind the jurors what type of firearm this is?
This is an Alexander Arms 6.5 Grendel.
And I think you have a pointer up there. But when we just looked at that email from Tammy, she specifically references a hopper or what she thought might be a hopper on the firearm. Can you again explain where on this firearm, if this were a paintball gun, where the hopper would be located?
Again, like I was referencing yesterday, the scope is on the top of the rail of the gun right here. On a paintball gun, it comes off right on the side and up, right there.
So the hopper would be around the same location as this scope.
Yes.
We saw some searches about drilling a baffle to make a suppressor. Can you talk a little bit about what a suppressor is?
A suppressor is a device that can be screwed onto the end of rifles, handguns, miniguns that will make
Hey,
the
Johnny.
bullet coming out quiet. Sometimes people make homemade suppressors, which they have to drill holes. And you can also buy those legally.
Where on the firearm would you attach the suppressor?
The suppressor is attached right on the end of the barrel right there.
And Your Honor, I have what's been marked as State's Exhibit 281C, if I can have the detective shown a copy.
You may.
Detective, do you recognize that photo?
Yes.
And did you in fact take that photo?
Yes.
And what is it a photo of?
This is a photo of the end of the rifle.
A close-up photo?
Yes.
Your Honor, the state would move for admission of State's Exhibit 281C.
Any objection?
No, Judge.
Exhibit 281C is admitted.
Your Honor, may I have permission to publish?
Yes.
And Officer or Detective, can you tell us what we're seeing on the end of that gun?
So the end of the rifle right there, it's threaded. A lot of times there's muzzle brakes on there, or you can take that muzzle brake off and thread a suppressor onto that.
Detective Kaikamano, through your investigation, did you learn anything in relation to whether or not Alex Cox was in the area of the Daybell residence on October 9th?
Yes.
And what did you learn?
A device associated with Homer J. Maximus.
Judge, foundation.
It's Blake.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Kaikamano, as part of your investigation, did you review reports of other investigators?
Yes.
And did you discuss the matter with other investigators?
Yes.
And through your discussion and review, did you learn anything or review anything in relation to the location of a device associated with Alex Cox on October 9th of 2019?
Yes.
Did you learn anything in relation to a device being in the area of the Daybell residence?
Yes.
What did you learn?
On October 9th, 2019, a device that was associated with Alex Cox, known as Homer J. Maximus, was located going up and turning next to the Daybell residence and driving and making a turn and going back around the Daybell residence. This time frame was about 4:40, 4:55 p.m. to 5:03 p.m.
So 4 hours or so before the attempted shooting.
Yes.
And later in the day, that same device was at Sportsman's Warehouse in Idaho Falls. Is that correct?
Yes.
Detective Kaikamanu, are you aware if any paintball guns were located in the residence associated with Alex Cox?
Not that I'm aware of.
Are you aware if there were any other calls on October 9th that you found in relation to anyone else reporting a masked man pointing a rifle at them?
I did not find any.
You aware of any other reports around that time about a masked man pointing a paintball gun at anyone?
No.
So to the best of your knowledge, this was an isolated incident around this time?
Yes.
Do you recall reviewing anything in relation to some geofence location data?
Yes.
What dates did you review that in relation to?
I got those geofence warrants through October 18th into October 19th, 2019.
And again, what day was Tammy pronounced deceased?
October 19th, 2019.
Did you end up receiving responsive data in relation to the geofence?
I did.
Which specific locations did you ask for that data for October 18th to October 19th?
I did two fences, one located at 202 North, 1900 East, which is Chad and Tammy Daybell's residence. And then I did another one at 3462 Salem Highway, which is the LDS Church, just 2.6 miles south of the Daybell residence.
And with those geofence warrants, were you looking for a specific perimeter radius on those?
Yes, I did 150 meters.
And can you tell us a little bit about what data you initially got back in your request to those?
So when I requested information for data on any device coming through those through the geofences, I got a response from Google with a bunch of Google identification numbers.
What did you then do with those identification numbers? Can you talk us through that process?
So when we write a warrant like that, Google will send back the numbers that have been going through through the geofences. They don't come back with any names. And so we then had to write another warrant with those numbers to try and find out the associated name to those devices or those numbers.
Did you locate some specific numbers that you did something with.
I did.
How many numbers caught your attention in that initial response?
So the time I had the geofence warrants up, there were 4 numbers that had gone through both geofence warrants or locations.
Did you do anything to follow up on those 4 numbers?
I did.
And what did you do?
I met with Detective Stubbs, who at the time worked with Rexburg PD, and he has knowledge on how the geofence works. And we went through the numbers. 2 of the numbers,
Judge, I'm going to object at this point. There hasn't been sufficient foundation to where this knowledge has come from. I've been somewhat patient.
Sustained.
Detective Kaikamanu, did you send in a second search warrant in relation to these geofence?
yes,
And did you receive responsive information?
yes,
And how many numbers did you request additional information for?
4.
And you were talking about having met with Detective Stubbs. Did Detective Stubbs initially recognize anything about those 4 numbers?
Judge, objection, that would call for hearsay.
Sustained.
Your Honor, if I may respond.
Well, I would re-ask. I think it was just going to elicit hearsay.
Did you learn anything in relation to those 4 numbers prior to getting the second return?
I did, yes.
And what did you learn?
Judge, again, it may call for hearsay.
Your Honor, this goes for why the officer did what he did next in his investigation, not for the truth of the matter.
Overruled. You can answer.
I learned that one of the numbers that had come back in my geofence warrant, Detective Stubbs already had that number, which was associated with Alex Cox on a different warrant that Detective Stubbs had wrote and got information back.
And in relation to the other 3 numbers, did you end up receiving responsive data on who those devices were associated with?
I did.
Did you do follow-up on that?
I got a hold of 2 of them. One of them I could not get a hold of.
What were you able to determine in relation to those other 3 numbers?
One of them lives in the Parker area, which is north of Chad Daybell's residence. And the other one lives on Trapper Lane, which is also north of the Daybell residence.
So would it have been normal for their devices to be in that area?
Yes.
In relation to the device associated with Alex Cox, what did you learn regarding that device?
The device that was associated with Alex Cox and Homer J. Maximus, and looking through the data, the night of October 18th, 2019, that device was at the Salem Church at 10:04 that night, or 10:05 p.m.
Sometime just after 10?
Correct.
Do you know how long the device showed as being located in that vicinity?
In correctional time, I believe it was 10:07 p.m. and it showed him there until 10:45 p.m.
And when we're talking about a geofence warrant, do you know what type of data they're looking at as far as placing a device there?
I believe that is off Wi-Fi and GPS.
So with the geofence, it's located there until 10:45 p.m. of October 18th, correct?
Correct.
Did you learn anything else in relation to that device as far as any later time that night?
That device shuts off or goes dormant and is no longer there. And it is later picked up at 11:53, roughly 7 miles south of the church.
Judge, could we identify what church he's talking about?
And is this the same church that you previously referenced?
Correct, the Salem Church.
And again, how far is the Salem Church from the Daybell residence?
2.6 miles.
So we know a device associated with Alex Cox is there from 10:07 to 10:45 p.m. Is that correct?
Correct,
And from there, we're not sure where the device is
correct,
until 11:53 p.m.
Correct.
And at 11:53 PM, can you remind us again where that's located?
It was located about 7 miles south of the Salem Church on Highway 20.
Through your investigation, did you learn who the last person besides Chad Daybell to see Tammy would have been?
Garth Daybell.
And through your investigation, did you learn where Garth Daybell was on the night of October 18th of 2019? Or yeah, October 18th of 2019?
He was at work.
Through your investigation, did you learn if he was at work all night?
I believe he got off around 1 o'clock in the morning.
Do you know where he was working?
He worked at that time, he was working at the Haunted Mill.
And what is the Haunted Mill?
It's October. The Haunted Mill is a haunted, scary attraction.
And it's seasonal.
Seasonal, yes.
When you looked at that geofence, did you get any return on a device associated with Chad Daybell?
No,
Not at either location.
no.
Did you later learn where Chad had indicated he was on October 18th into the morning hours of October 19th?
From other deputies' reports, he had told them that he had been home.
And yet no device was located in relation to Chad Daybell.
Correct.
So in your review, there's location data placing a device associated with Alex Cox near the Daybell residence on October 9th of 2019, correct?
Yes,
And on the night of October 18th of 2019?
yes.
Were you able to find any connection between Alex Cox and Tammy Daybell?
No,
Were you able to determine who Alex Cox knew in that area?
at that time, no. The only person that I was aware of would be Chad Daybell.
Good morning, PKC. I'm still milking my coffee.
Through your investigation, did you become aware of some emails from Charles Vallow that he'd sent to an email that he sent to Tammy Daybell?
Yes,
Did you also become aware of an email Charles Vallow sent to Chad Daybell?
yes.
Do you recall what the content or what the gist of the email that he sent to Tammy was about?
The email that was sent to Tammy was on June 29th, 2019. And Charles was reaching out to her school address, email address, and telling her that he had some information about an affair going on. He didn't go into too much detail because he didn't want to explain all that over email, and left Tammy his number to have Tammy call him.
And through your investigation, were you ever able to determine whether or not with Charles Vallow?
I was not able to confirm that.
And in relation to the email Charles sent to Chad Daybell, do you recall the gist or content of that?
Yes.
And what was that about?
So Charles sent on the same day an email to Chad, telling Chad that he was aware of what was going on between him and his wife, and Chad needed to tell his wife, or Charles was going to expose them. He was also aware that Lori had sent him some dance videos of her, and that was inappropriate.
Through your investigation, did you learn whether Chad and
Dance
Lori
videos.
were married?
Yes.
And what did you learn?
I learned that they got married November 5th, 2019.
And again, Tammy Daybell was pronounced dead on October 19th of 2019.
Yes.
Do you know when her funeral was?
October 22nd, 2019.
So just 3 days later.
Yes.
My God.
And I have no further questions.
All right,
Tammy
thank you, Ms.
Daybell
Blake.
was done so wrong.
Cross-examination.
Judge, would you like me to start or do you want to take a break?
Why don't you go ahead and start and we'll take a break here in about 20 minutes or so, if that works.
She was done so wrong, man. I didn't, and I just heard them mention something about videos, dancing videos that
Can we have the microphone, please?
my
Officer, if you would allow me to either call you Officer K or I'm going to mispronounce your name for the next 20, 25 minutes.
That Officer K is okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Now, officer, you took the liberty of let me find this. Going through talking about your report about the emails between Mark Daybell and Tammy. Is that right?
Yes.
And Judge, I believe that was Exhibit 291. And if I could have 291.
Yes, we'll have the bailiff hand that to you or to the witness, Mr. Pryor,
Okay.
which
Just to me. And Judge, if I could have permission to just publish.
you may publish that.
And officer, if you could tell me the date of that email.
10/13/2019.
Okay. And then that was obviously Dear Markey. That would be Tammy's son.
Yes.
Okay. And the very first sentence, it said, on Wednesday during the day, a lady pulled into the Price's driveway, grabbed their dog, drove off, right?
Yes.
And then she went on to talk about what transpired about that and about where they tried to locate where the lady lived. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Now, from your investigation, were you able to determine where Regan Price lives?
Yes.
Where's Regan Price live?
Regan Price lives directly south of Chad Daybell's house.
Okay, and then that would be directly east of Joe Murray's house.
Correct. Yes.
So if we have if we can visualize this, we have Chad Daybell's property. And approximately how big is Chad Daybell's property? Do you know?
Not aware of that.
Okay, it's a more than an acre.
Yes.
Okay. And directly across the street from Chad Daybell's property is another house, correct?
Yes.
And then kitty corner to the south and to the west would be Joe Murray, right?
Yes.
And directly southeast of Chad's property would be Regan Price. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Okay, so 4 houses all kitty corner from each other. And this is more of a rural setting. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And the houses are all on larger plots of property, correct?
Yes.
But the houses themselves are relatively close in terms of location. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
All of the houses on that particular corner, we heard on the 911, there was something about a flashing yellow light And on that very corner, that's where all the four residences are located, pretty much on the corner of each of those, that intersection, right?
Yes,
Okay, so relatively close together are these homes, that we've established that, right?
yes,
Okay, so one of the close neighbors is this lady by the name of Regan Price, correct?
yes.
And she talked about how somebody um, pulled into their driveway and grabbed their dog. Do you recall when that took place?
Well, in this email, she's writing it on the 13th about the night of the attempted shooting, so I'm assuming it was on the 9th.
Okay, so if you look at the very first line to her, she's writing this on the 13th to her son, which was a short time after the paintball incident. Um, She says on Wednesday, during the day with Reagan outside. So can we presume that it was that Wednesday of that week?
Yes,
Okay. So at that point, somebody grabbed Reagan Price's dog, took off, stole the dog and disappeared, correct?
yes,
And then now she says on the same day, you look down below to the second paragraph, right? You see that?
Yep. yes,
She was coming home from clogging. It was about 9:15 and she backed into the driveway. Okay. So the nose of her car was facing out of the driveway, correct?
yes,
Now, what I'd like to know is, uh, you've been out to the house, right?
yes.
And how long of a driveway is that?
The front driveway, and I haven't measured it, but maybe,
I can make it easier for you if we could do it in
Yeah.
terms of an analysis. Would you be able to park 3 cars back to back in that driveway and not have any of them sticking out into the road?
maybe 2.5 to 3, yeah.
Okay, 2.5 to 3 cars maybe,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so and from your experience as a police officer, do you know the length of what the average automobile would be?
I am not aware of that.
Okay, but if we took the size of an average automobile and we multiplied it times 2.5, that's how much space we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And if you were looking at this bench in front of us, how many cars would you say were the jury sitting, how many cars could you push back to back in front of this bench?
Probably about 2.
Okay, so if we're asking about 2.5, would it be fair to say that the driveway was from the end of that bench to where this officer is?
Possibly.
Okay, so that's the length of the driveway. And at that point, from what I understand, according to this document to Mark, she was getting some items out of the back seat and realized someone was at the back of the car. So she backed her car in and someone was behind her car. That would be near the garage. Is that the way you're reading that?
Behind her car, yes.
Okay, so someone was behind her car near the garage. She looked up thinking it was Dad or Garth to help her. Nope, it was a guy dressed in black with a ski mask on, pointing a rifle at me. And she did say the word rifle, didn't she?
Yes,
Okay. Then she went on to talk about that she was in shock because what do you think you were doing? Then the next line was starting with then. Would you read that next line for me?
then I noticed the rifle was actually a paintball gun. It had a hopper on top.
Okay. Now, you know what a hopper is, right?
Yes,
You've seen a hopper?
yes,
You know a hopper is different than a rifle scope, right?
yes,
And you know that, Judge, I'm gonna. So in any event, you know that a hopper is a little different than a rifle scope, right?
Yes,
And you know that a hopper is a large composite of some kind container, right?
it's plastic container.
A big
Yes,
plastic container, right?
yes.
And would you agree with me that it would be very difficult to confuse a hopper with a rifle scope, right?
I wouldn't agree with you on that if you're
Okay.
not sure what a rifle is with a scope on it or a
Okay.
paintball gun with a hopper.
Did you happen to go over the report of Coulter Cannon?
I did.
Did you happen to go over uh, or discuss the case with Coulter Cannon?
A little bit, yes.
Okay. Were you aware that when Coulter Cannon came up to the residence of Tammy and Chad Daybell, that he went in the house and looked at one of the Google searches that Tammy was performing prior to the police arriving? Do you remember that?
I was not aware of that.
Okay. Or did you happen to look at Tammy's email and searches on that computer to determine whether Tammy had looked at anything prior to the police arriving?
Not on her computer, no.
Okay. Were you aware that Officer Cannon walked up to the computer with Garth Daybell and Tammy Daybell and proceeded to look at pictures of paintball guns?
I was not aware of that.
Were you aware that during the Google search by Tammy Daybell, that she pointed to the actual paintball gun that she saw the gentleman holding that day?
I was not aware of that.
Okay, were you not aware of that because Coulter Cannon didn't include that information in his report well, not in his first report, right? That wasn't included in his first report, was it?
I didn't read that in his report.
You didn't read it in his supplemental report either when he chose to supplement the report, correct?
Correct.
Now, Judge, previously we had stipulated to the admission of Defense Exhibit 14.
Okay, has it been offered or admitted yet, Mr.
I'm
Pryor?
going to offer it now, Judge, and ask that it be admitted. It was agreed to by stipulation.
I definitely agree with that.
As the state
idea.
reviewed Exhibit 14.
We have, Your Honor, but if I can be reminded of exactly what it is.
It's the Google,
All right.
it's the
Counsel.
searches, yes.
Well, let's do this. I want to go ahead and that may take a moment. I think it's a logical breaking point for our mid-morning recess. So I'll have the state review the exhibit that's been offered during the break. And let's try and come back on the record here in about 25 minutes or so. So about 10:35.
Thank you, Judge. Okay, that's okay. Okay, right? Okay, right? Okay, right? Okay, okay.
Okay. Hello, welcome, Mandy Girl. And yes, I think we're in agreement in this chat that, and the facts of the case are that Tammy, that as soon as all of that happened and the gunman ran away, she ran into the house and started yelling for her husband, right? She went to get her husband. So the minute she got her husband and, she wasn't dead as she was maybe supposed to be, unless they were supposed to scare her. She obviously started describing everything to him, and he was like, "Oh, sounds like a paintball gun." And then that got into the head of, that got into the narrative right away. Well, right. And they found the gun that they keep showing in evidence on the screen is the gun that they found in Alex's possession, which could be mistaken possibly for a paintball gun. Right? Yeah, exactly. She was feeble and anemic and had fainting spells. She, no, she fainted and had a seizure and then she ran inside. I mean, that's a little bit of dark humor, but yeah, you know what I mean. But anyway, so the thing is that if it was just this description of a gun that was at hand, maybe I'd be worried about this particular incident, but I'm not. But it's not. That's not the only incident at hand, and the only evidence from this particular thing. She saw, if I recall correctly, she saw the car. Somebody else saw him running away. Her brother-in-law saw him running away. She did, in fact, die 10 days later, right? This same incident happened a few days earlier in Arizona to another person connected to the family who was rated dark by Chad Daybell. So it's not some random thing. All of these things are connected together. So, you know, it's quite disingenuous, and I'm sure the jury is smart enough to put it together. The, you know, description of the gun as a paintball gun is a red herring, and I'm sure Chad is quite proud of being able to you know, put that red herring in there and get the trial hung up on that narrative for a bit of time. It really doesn't matter that there was a Google search on the, you know, on the computers, and that they showed the officer these Google searches of paintball guns. That isn't a normal thing, I don't think, for the police to be putting in a report on an incident for that. I'm sure they will, Tiggy girl. So, in other news, as was reported earlier in chat, Harvey Weinstein, his charges were reversed in New York. His R charge was reversed in New York by an appeals court. It is rather shocking. But I read up on it. So it sounds like the ruling was overturned because the previous judge in the trial. Yes, that's right. That's right, Solo Sock. Yeah, Mandy girl, every woman goes through anemia at some point in their lives. It's insane. So yes, he will still remain in custody. Weinstein, that is, he will remain in custody because he was also convicted for the same thing in LA. So he will remain incarcerated, and I'm sure that there may be an appeal on the appeal. But the reason for the ruling, the new ruling, is because they allowed testimony to come in. The judge allowed testimony to come in that the appeals court thought shouldn't have come in. So it's frustrating. It's frustrating. And it does go to show that when you do these trials and when you watch these trials, that's why these judges have to be so careful about keeping the integrity of the process, of the judicial process, so that a conviction stays, a conviction sticks, and some other judge who has a different way of thinking can't take it away. I know, exactly, Patricia. So in other news, the Karen Reed trial is looming, and they have seated a jury. There is a motions hearing going on. I don't know if it's still happening at the very moment. Let me look. One moment. It is.
Again, court's concerned, this is extremely modest and it's not going to take a whole lot of presentation. If the court doesn't want to monitor, the court says, I don't want to monitor.
I don't know if I want monitors on those tables so close to the jury.
That's fine. Then the court can say, I don't want monitors that close
And
to
they're
the jury.
talking
Then
about
what I would do is just use paper
coverage.
copies. When I'm up on direct or
The court layout.
cross-examination, I don't want to have to, I can't prepare with the Commonwealth's.
No, I understand that. I don't think he'll fit a council table.
I can't speak to that. I think he would. I think we can accommodate him. Or if he doesn't fit right at council table, we also set up, he was on a relatively large case that we had in a small courtroom back in California, and he set up just behind council table, and he's got his own laptop and nobody else can see it. And he's got a type of screen that you can't see it from angles. So jurors are not going to be seeing anything, but I need to be able to, and Ms. Little and Mr. Yannetti need to be able to prepare with him. And I think the court.
No, I understand that. I don't have a problem with that. It's the 4 monitors on the tables, 1 on the bench,
then-
1 for the
then
court.
we won't,
We're in a small room.
then we won't do that.
And I'm concerned about the amplifying sound. I mean, is it like movie theater sound? I mean, it's again a tiny room at your request.
He uses very modest speakers that are appropriate for the space. So for instance, in this space, it would be probably a couple of speakers that are larger so that the jurors can hear, or the court can hear. In a small space, he'll just pare it down and use small speakers. And there's a switch. So for instance, he will work with Commonwealth's AV expert, and there's a switch on both tables. When it's my turn, switch, and now.
All right,
he's
so
pulling
so
what's on
is
the-
that switch, are you putting wires? I mean, these are all the things that I shouldn't be dealing with. I mean, we just got Wi-Fi in this building a week ago. I mean,
More
it's
tech
not a building
issues.
that,
I understand.
we can just last minute. It's a beautiful old historic building. We want to keep it that way. So,
And we will not mess anything up. As a matter of fact, I was told that by the Commonwealth that she uses switches, consistently. That's not new technology. It's very simple. It just allows both of us to be able to prepare with the audio-visual portion of the case more seamlessly. That's all. We just want to make it more seamless and more professional for the court and for the jurors.
so it would be during your case in chief.
It would be during my cross-examination of every one of the witnesses. I mean, the bulk of the case is going to be the Commonwealth's case in chief.
All right, with exhibits that are already into evidence, you're not trying to enter exhibits during cross-examination?
I mean, unless it's an impeachment that I didn't see coming. But even in that case, my habit and practice, my custom and practice would be to approach, if it's a matter in controversy, or tell the Commonwealth in advance, I'm about to show this photograph. Do you have any issue with it? No, I don't. And then we'll show it. But I would never, the point of it is not to ambush anybody. It's just to make what is going to be shown and what's allowed to be shown seamless and more professional looking.
Does the Commonwealth and Ms. Gilman have an opportunity to spend a little time today to take a look at it and see? I mean, everybody's preparing for trial, obviously. Again, this is, I don't have the time to do it, and I understand if you don't, but.
I think Ms. Gilman can spend some time. She actually had made arrangements to meet Mr. Bates here last Friday, and he didn't appear when we were told he was going to be here. So, but I'm happy to have Ms. Gilman.
Ms. Gilman, are you willing to spend some time today?
These opposing parties are always
you.
throwing shade at
Wait,
each other.
Just on Mr. Bates's defense, yes, he was supposed to come last Friday. He was told he couldn't come because he hadn't gotten permission from this court yet.
Okay.
We did not.
Well, that makes sense, frankly.
I just didn't want there to be a sort of a hanging Chad where that's concerned. He didn't leave.
Well, especially where he didn't start out
Hanging
well,
Chad.
right? Being at council table during impanelment.
I understand that. And he's been told that that was inappropriate and obviously would never happen again.
Oh,
All
I wanna
right,
see that.
so some sort of ground rules. Only one counsel, whoever's doing the cross-examination of the witness, objects. Just one, not all of you. It's not a tag team. So one person objects. If you want to approach the witness, you must ask permission. At sidebar, there will only be one person talking again, and it'll follow with whoever does the examination. Many times I allow counsel to discuss things, and many times I call directly on
Hey,
maybe appellate
Lollipop.
counsel or counsel who's been the big law person. So you can ask me for permission for that, and no basis for your objection. You just simply object. That's it. And if we need to see you at sidebar, we'll see you at sidebar. But I don't want a whole litany of reasons why the testimony you think is inadmissible.
No
So those
speaking
are
objection.
pretty standard rules. I'd like to see counsel at sidebar regarding a jury issue.
Okay, so this hearing's been going on for a while. What I'm going to do is I've been reading up. There is a reporter in the hearing. His name is Grant Ellis, and he's been reporting on this. So let's read up on what he's been saying, because there's been some interesting rulings about what's going to be shown and what's not going to be shown in the trial. And it will be helpful for when we start to actually watch the trial next week, in between watching the Chad Daybell trial. So let me just get the view here so you can see it better. Do this. All right. So I'm back in the courtroom for the Karen Reed hearing. Have not yet began, but I have my official media lanyard. Reed, her defense team, and the state are here, as are Reed's family. Members of the public start to file in. Karen Reed has some supporters here today. More so than during jury selection. We talked outside as a group about how they didn't like how I was treated yesterday by the Massachusetts State Police for trying to ask Karen if she had any comment on the case. I'm still not sure if media can ask Karen if she has comment before and after court. I will do what I can to get an answer from court staff as the hearing concludes today. Judge should be here soon. Only one half of the courtroom has Karen Reed supporters, about 25 or so today. No Turtle Boy, though, at least as of yet. I would guess he doesn't want to take any risks before he tries to get his something. Now, every time I hate Twitter's interface, because when you hit show more, then you get kicked into a whole other area, a thread. Okay, so a motion's allowed by agreement or previously allowed by a judge. Motion to admit the 911 CAL. Paper now 298. No objection, allowed by agreement. So there's a 911 called allowed. Motion for the court reporter, paper number 291, and the impoundment related to that agreed. Motion 307. State's motion to allow Reed's statement to come in as medical treatment on the morning, as to medical treatment on the morning of 129. We'll deal with the BAC test. Those are blood alcohol content tests that show Reed was drunk at the time she hit John O'Keefe later today. As to leading questions to John O'Keefe's minor niece and nephew, judge says we'll take this up as needed, and judge will give leeway based on the manner of testimony provided by the children. So jury selection is over. They have selected the jury, and they're going to start opening arguments on they're going to start opening arguments on Monday. This hearing today is about motions in limine discussing what is going to be allowed and not allowed at trial. And what we were just watching was them discussing the layout of the court during the hearing. That's part of the motions that they're talking about. I'm sorry, the layout of the court during trial. The defense has asked that they move the court, or they move the trial to a different courtroom, because they say that the jury can't see the exhibits. The state is arguing that, hey, we've been holding a court here in this room for hundreds of years, and we should be fine. But the defense is asking for all kinds of, customization. So that's what they were talking about. But now I'm reading through the different motions that they are agreeing and not agreeing on right now in the hearing that we were just watching, and the things that they are agreeing to hear in evidence. So defense motion 288 regarding any reference to Aiden Kearney, aka Turtle Boy, or his pending criminal charges for witness intimidation. Both parties agreed not to introduce this, or in their case in chief, if anyone opens a door, it's coming. So basically what they're saying is Turtle Boy and anything related to what happened with him is not to come in unless one or the other party opens the door. If one or the other parties open the door, then it's open season. Motion 312, preventing any prior bad conduct evidence by either by the victim or the witness from coming in, is allowed by agreement. Reed won't be attacking the character of witnesses by reputation evidence. So what this means is that prior bad conduct evidence by the victim or witnesses cannot come in, which means that, which has been mainly the entire case, the entire defense by Reed's team, is that there's all this bad conduct on behalf of the state and the police. And they want to try to bring in all kinds of evidence of prior bad conduct. So that's no longer on the table for the defense. So they're just going to have to prove bad conduct in this particular case. Motion from the defense as to not introducing any positive character evidence about Reed is allowed. Motion from the defense as to not introducing any positive character evidence about Reed is allowed. I'm confused about that one. Paper number 297 to redact the manner of death is denied as to cross-examination of the medical expert, but that undetermined language will be redacted on the death certificate itself. Motion number 317, prohibiting reference to any federal investigation allowed after a hearing. That's a confusing statement. So I'm wondering, so it's unclear to me whether they've decided we are going to allow reference to the federal investigation or we are not. I'm reading that as we are not. We are not going to allow reference to a federal investigation. That's my understanding of it. So I suspect these are a lot of updates and a lot of things that I'm sure will be better spelled out in a more concise way by a news outlet. We'll watch that. But there's also people live in front of the courthouse again. So let's see if there's anything exciting happening.
Damn.
Mother does it. My mother sighs all the time. I tell her stories.
Not like that. I'm sure your mom doesn't go like that.
Oh, she's worse.
Grab a microphone.
She's like,
Well, people just basically hanging out.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. Like I keep seeing that.
Hearing is still going
Whenever
on.
I talk about stuff like this, somebody is like, "Welcome
They're
to
watching the
Massachusetts."
glare
Like,
in
this
the
is just
car.
a regular fucking thing there, dude.
Yeah.
Back and see if there's a better place.
I mean, if this case doesn't change things,
allow his representation that we don't know what this investigation is about.
I mean, this is spring. You're witnessing it. All the trees are blooming. Even the oak trees. They usually take a while. Flags around the courthouse, but you know, that's a flag too. Tell her I'll bring $20 tomorrow. That's really nice.
It is really nice.
You want to like this, or we want
This is perfect. I'm more than fine with this.
just like that?
Yes. It's even got rubber thing on the bottom. That's nice.
And a metal straw.
And a metal straw.
We need 100 of these.
Yeah.
She goes, I'll do one for you. She goes, just
Yeah.
let me know how much, how many people. I'm like,
That's
"Okay."
really nice.
She'll do whatever design you.
Is the signal that my phone receives is close to what they're putting out.
Right.
Close enough that it sees it, that noise. Bye, dear. Thank you for being here today again.
All right, I'll see you later.
Yep.
It was a good one that I got.
Everyone says bye for you.
I'm like, where are they? And then I call Chrissy. I'm like, I know.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got these. My friend's here, guys. My friend.
That did this to him.
Putting the glare on.
Spent a long time behind bars.
Glare is showing him.
Long time.
Yep.
As well as the women that were involved in the cover. All of them.
So this guy's talking about putting the
Why the Boston
Why the
police out
bar, I
here?
can tell you why the
behind
bars
bars.
because they don't believe she's guilty. But I guarantee when she's acquitted or this case is dismissed, and they bring charges against the people that live in that house, there'll be plenty of uniformed police officers in that courtroom. They're gonna nail his ass to a cross. I guess. What kind of Boston police officer doesn't come out of his house to see another Boston police officer in his front yard?
Right. Right.
Absolutely asinine.
But better yet,
So do you guys have any strong opinions about this trial, about this case? Karen Reed, have you followed it at all? I honestly, I want to withhold my strong opinion until I see the trial, because I don't, there's just been too much chaos and too much propaganda around it. So much intentional chaos that you don't know what to believe. And when there's so much intentional chaos, that's exactly what court is for, you know? Emily D. Baker did a good overview of it. I did watch that. It is a circus. It is a circus.
Overlook the basics of investigative work.
simple.
Simple, basic.
Keep clean. Hooky.
You know, you get a bunch of people who are bored. They don't have a purpose. They don't have any, you know, they need a reason. They need a boogeyman. Oh, court's back in session, so let's go back there. Chad looking very
All right,
prayerful.
thank you. Please be seated. We'll have the jurors return to the courtroom, please.
Yep. Few people are the clowns. Yeah. It's too hard to tell, Music City Mom. Uh-oh. Court starts Monday morning in Karen Reed trial. It starts Monday morning at 10 o'clock.
Perhaps while we're having the jurors brought in, let's do go on the record, CR 22211623. There was a question on Exhibit 14 and whether or not that would be admitted by stipulation. Did counsel resolve that?
Your Honor, I have had a chance to review that, and it is data recovered. It's a report referencing data recovered from Tammy Daybell's phone, and the contents of her phone were stipulated to. So we wouldn't have an objection.
Okay, so we'll just go ahead and admit Exhibit 14 once the jurors return, so they hear that.
Judge, I have a picture as well, and the state has a picture of their own. I guess we're gonna play dueling pictures. Mine I'd like to mark as 14A. I don't know what the state would like to have theirs marked as.
Yes, it was the photo that Mr. Pryor showed us and then didn't actually move for admission of because we hadn't seen it before today. We would not object to the admission of that photo.
Can you use the microphone, please? We just got to get the record of this, Mr. Pryor.
And Judge, I also just saw their picture today, so I will stipulate to the admission of their picture as well. But mine is 14A if the bailiff wants to.
All right. Are you requesting that the bailiff retrieve that exhibit so it can be marked?
So it can be marked and accepted, Judge, as 14A.
Thank you, Mr. Bailiff.
Yeah, me too. Solo Sock. Conspiracies are exciting to think about, but you really have to prove it to me to get me to believe it. I need solid proof.
And we can have the jurors brought in once they're ready.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right.
Here's a quiz question for you all. How many average clicks do you believe it takes?
Here's our President Got it for you, Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Bailiff. Please be seated.
For people to eventually end up in conspiracy content on YouTube? Now, this
Okay, we're back on the record. The jurors have returned and are properly seated. I'll note the parties were able to review those exhibits and have offered, and at this time the court will admit Defense Exhibit 14 as well as Defendant's Exhibit 14A, both admitted. You can continue with the cross-examination, Mr. Pryor.
Judge, if we could put the monitor back up with what I was discussing, which I believe was Exhibit 291.
it's actually 7.
Now, officer, prior to taking our break, I think I was talking about the third paragraph down. And would you do me a favor and read the first 2 sentences of that?
Are you referring to the one where it says?
I think.
Okay. I think I was a bit in shock because I just said, what do you think you were doing? Then I noticed the rifle was actually a paintball gun. It had a hopper on top.
Then the next line says, the guy started pulling the trigger and I could just hear the clicking and whooshing sound of an empty paintball gun. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. He stayed there standing by the back of the car, just pulling the trigger while pointing the gun at me. For some reason, I just kept asking him what he thought he was doing. Now, for She did say in the sentence, just pointing the gun at me. And we don't know whether she meant a gun or whether she meant paintball, correct? Because she identified it as a paintball, but she did use the gun on that sentence, correct?
Yes,
But we don't know whether that was a mistake or whether she just decided not to type the word paintball in, right?
correct.
Right. Okay. Then I just asked him at what point I was actually more annoyed than scared because he was standing between me and the door and he didn't step toward me or even say anything. Okay. Okay. So, from what I understand, when she was backing up, then the front of the door is really right next to the garage, right?
If I remember right, yes, it's a little sidewalk up to the garage or
Yeah.
to the main door.
And that sidewalk's probably less than 5 feet, correct?
I didn't testify to that. I'm
It's a
not sure.
short sidewalk.
Okay.
though. Well,
I-
not okay. Do you
I can't testify to that.
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel's adding facts, not in evidence.
That's sustained. And in addition, please don't talk at the same time as each other. Mr. Pryor, wait for a concluded answer before you ask a new question.
My goodness,
Would you
Prior.
agree that it's a short sidewalk from the gate into the yard to the front door?
It is a short sidewalk, but I can't testify to how long it is.
Okay, that's okay. Now, from this description, this person was standing between the door and the garage at the very back of Tammy's, where Tammy's car was backed in, correct?
Yes,
So in other words, that was something that was at relatively close range. Would you agree with me?
yes,
And in that sense, being at such close range, you'd probably get a pretty good look at what type of instrument was being pointed at you. Would you agree with me in that regard?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation.
Overruled.
Would you agree with me in that regard? When it's something that close to you and you're looking at it, you'd be reasonably certain about what you're looking at, correct?
it was in the daylight.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, we can all agree that the manufacturers of paintball guns make them in various shapes and sizes, correct?
Yes,
And the manufacturers of these guns get some benefit by making some of these guns look similar to weapons, right? Real weapons.
yes,
And they can make them quite authentic at times, correct?
they can be, yes.
Right. But there is one thing that distinguishes a paintball gun between a real gun, and that is a hopper, correct?
Like you just mentioned before, the manufacturers are coming out with new guns. So yes, a hopper is one, but there's many other ways that paintballs can fit into a rifle without a hopper.
Okay. Okay. So in other words, unless we actually had this weapon in hand, we really don't know which one it is. Would that be fair?
Yes,
Okay. Okay. Now, please correct me if I'm making a mistake, but without a suppressor, a AR-15 is a very, very loud gun, isn't it?
yes,
And even with a suppressor, an AR-15 is not silent. It still makes a pretty loud noise, doesn't it?
it depends what kind of ammunition you're using.
Okay. Well, what kind of ammunition was in this gun?
That I don't know.
Well, you don't even know if it was a gun, do you?
I know it was a paintball gun or a rifle that she referred to.
Okay. Okay. But depending on the ammunition, there's still going to be a loud noise, right?
Are you asking with the suppressor on or off?
With the suppressor on, there's still going to be a noise, right?
There will be a noise, but not as loud depending on what
Okay.
ammunition you're using.
Okay. And when you're just several feet from the front door of a house with Garth Daybell and Chad Daybell inside the house, you would think they would have heard a gun if even with a suppressor, you think they would have heard the rifle shoot, right?
Again, it depends on what ammunition is being
Okay.
shot through the gun.
But what we do know and what we're certain of is that when a paintball gun is shot, they can't change the fact that there's a whooshing noise, can they?
There's a popping noise with the clicking,
And a whooshing noise.
whooshing and popping.
Right. Okay. Okay. So when Tammy Daybell in this report talks about the whooshing noise that she heard, sounds like she's describing the whooshing noise from a paintball gun.
Objection, Your Honor. Move to strike. Counsel's testifying.
Sustained.
Did it sound from this this email that Daybell's describing the whooshing noise of a paintball gun?
She said she heard a clicking and whooshing.
Okay. Okay. Now, we move further down and we talk about where it says the thought crossed my mind to hit him with my clogging shoes. Looked toward the house and yelled, Chad. They ran off around the north side of the house. You see that?
Yes.
Got Dad and Garth. They looked outside, couldn't find them, called the police, reported it. Then she uses the term, they suspect it was a bipolar teenager who lives down the street and walks around a lot, but Matt Price has an even better theory, right?
Yes.
Okay. So it's really unclear who they say they suspect it was a bipolar teenager. They don't know if we're talking about the police told them or whether it was Chad and Garth said it was a bipolar teenager. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay. So when Officer Coulter was on the stand, I had spoken to him about the fact that in his report, he didn't mention anything about a bipolar teenager running around the neighborhood harassing people. Were you aware of that at the time of this offense?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation.
Overruled.
Were you aware of the fact that there was a bipolar teenager running around the neighborhood? Maybe I want to be careful with my words. Contacting the people in these neighborhoods?
I was not.
Okay. And are you aware whether or not you ever discussed that with Officer Coulter?
I can't recall if I did or not.
Okay. Did you discuss that with any of the other officers who were there at the time of this paintball incident about this bipolar teenager?
I did not.
Okay. Then we go on and we talk about his theory and his theory is that the crazy dog lady brought her husband back to steal the dog again. They had parked on the road and had snuck through the cow fields and he was going to cut through our front yard. So that's a couple of things. Park down the road, cut through the cow fields. Is that the Daybell's cow fields?
I can't testify if that's what she's referring to, because
Okay.
there are a couple others out there.
Yeah, but there are cow fields next door to the Daybells. The Daybells have a pasture behind their property as well, correct?
Yes.
And then they said they were going to cut through our front yard. So that would mean Chad and Tammy's front yard, correct?
Yes.
When I pulled up and startled him, he didn't know what to do. So he panicked and tried to menace me with his not real gun. So at that point, she's pretty clear that she knows it's a not real gun. Would you disagree with that?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation as to what Tammy knew.
Sustained.
Well, she put in a,
Objection, Your Honor. Narrative.
Yeah, Mr. Pryor, I ruled on it.
Okay.
So I'll ask a different question.
okay. So after the line that says it was a not real gun and then ran off back across the field, which would explain why he ran across the side of the house. I never heard a car and we couldn't find anywhere. You see that?
Yes.
And then she wrote, it's actually a pretty good theory. You see that?
Yes.
Did you guys interview Regan Price?
We spoke with Regan Price. Yes.
Okay. Did you talk to Matt Price?
Yes.
Okay. And did they confirm the fact that someone stole their dog around the close in time to this occurrence?
I'd have to go back to my report. I know we spoke with them after this incident, quite a ways after this.
Okay. But you do know that this incident with the dog, I believe it occurred on the same day that the paintball gun took place. Is that right?
Yes.
And the issues about the bipolar teenager running around the neighborhood, That was close in time as well, correct?
That was Matt's theory, yes.
Okay. And then finally, honestly, would you read the word honestly down to the end of the paragraph?
Honestly, I just kept wondering what kind of person walks around with a ski mask on, carrying an empty paintball gun. Bipolar doesn't mean you want to hurt people, so I'm leaning more towards Matt's theory. The guy didn't try to rob me or even really hurt me. On Thursday night, though, I didn't go to Zumba because I quite understandably did not want to be out after dark alone.
So in this particular incident, it's saying that I'm leaning towards Matt's theory. The guy didn't try to rob me, or the guy didn't try to hurt me. So she wasn't threatened by someone holding a paintball gun like a rifle, right?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation and mischaracterizes this email.
Sustained.
And Judge, I need to go back to
Exactly, Tess Mac. And also until we know
I'd like
that
to
the
go
same
back to
incident happened in
232B, and I'd like to
Arizona.
republish that for the jury, Judge.
All right, we'll have the bailiff provide that to you, Mr. Pryor.
And then why is a perfectly healthy, fit, in shape woman dead 10 days later? Come on,
And
guys.
Judge, if we could just wait till I get it brought up. I think I'm ready, Judge. Let's hope.
All right, you may.
Minutes, 20 seconds.
Fremont County Sheriff's Office. Hi, I need to report something. Okay, go ahead. What's the address? Okay, at 202 North, 1900 East, the corner with the blinking yellow light on Salem Highway. Is it a suspicious person? Yes. Okay, what was he wearing? He was all dressed in black and he had a ski mask on. And he said the blinking light now is where you saw him? No, he's gone now because I pulled up into our driveway and I was getting stuff out of the back seat of my car and suddenly he was there and he had a paintball gun and he was and like he was going to shoot at me. And I kept asking him what he was doing because I could tell it was a paintball thing. Okay. And then he just kept doing it. So I yelled for my husband and then he took off running around the back of my house. Okay, give me just 1 minute. Stay on the line with me. Okay.
October 9, 2019, 21 hours, 50 minutes, 28 seconds.
And that was north 1900 East? Yes.
October 9, 2019, 21 hours, 50 minutes, 43 seconds.
In what direction he was going? He went behind my house and it's so dark out here and I just went in the house and got my husband and son and then they went out and looked and he was long gone by then. Okay. So he was on the north side of my house is where he went to get away. Okay. he didn't say anything, or he just kept like he was holding the gun like he was, had a rifle and was shooting at me. So, but nothing came out of the gun either, so I don't think it was loaded.
Okay, and what is your name, ma'am?
My name is Tammy Daybell.
Okay, I will pass your information on to my deputies. We actually just had a previous call about this individual, so they're out in the area looking now.
Okay, yeah, I think it was my son-in-law who lived diagonal from us that called you guys already.
Oh,
So we
okay.
just wanted to make sure it got reported. So
Let's see. And what's your son-in-law's name?
Joseph Murray.
Okay, yep, it was him.
Okay.
So, all right, I have a deputy that will be out at your home here shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
At some point, Judge, I'm also going to need 232.
Into the microphone, please, Mr. Pryor.
I'm also going to need 232A at some point, but I'd like to discuss 232B. You listened carefully to the 911 call from Tammy Daybell. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, she said paintball a number of times during that 911 call, correct?
Couple times, yes.
And then at the end, she said, holding the gun like he was holding a rifle. She never said he was holding a rifle, did she?
I think you just stated it. He was holding a gun like the rifle.
She never said she was holding a rifle, did she?
Objection, Your Honor. The audio speaks for itself.
Sustained.
Okay. There was no discussion about a specific rifle. Was it not the manner in which the gun was being held? That was what we heard?
There's no specific rifle that she named, no.
Okay.
There was no specific rifle that she named.
Okay. Well, she didn't even say it was a rifle, did she?
She said a gun and a rifle.
Well, she said a gun holding like a rifle. Isn't that what she said?
Objection, Your Honor. Again, the audio speaks for itself.
Sustained.
Judge, I should be allowed to go into whether or not the manner in which.
Add an
Then replay that section,
answered.
Mr. Pryor,
Okay.
if you want to make it clear, but to just keep
Okay.
asking on the audio, we just
Oh
listened
my
to is improper.
God.
Bailiff, could I have 232 again, please?
What is this? What does this prove? Rifle, paint gun. The other bits of
I think
evidence
1A.
surrounding this are
you.
overwhelming, you idiot.
So Judge, again, we'll ask to publish 232A again.
I believe we just published 232B.
Backwards, excuse me.
Okay.
I apologize. I think I'm ready, Judge.
It's
Go ahead.
something like the third or fourth time that 911 call was played.
Fremont County Sheriff's Office.
Hi, I need to report something.
Okay, go ahead. What's the address?
Okay, at 202 North, 1900 East, the corner with the blinking yellow light on Salem Highway.
Is it a suspicious person?
Yes.
Okay, what was he wearing?
He was all dressed in black and he had a ski mask on.
And he said the blinking light now is where you saw him?
No, he's gone now because I pulled up into our driveway and I was getting stuff out of the back seat of my car and suddenly he was there and he had a paintball gun and he was and like he was going to shoot at me. And I kept asking him what he was doing because I could tell it was a paintball thing.
Okay.
And then he just kept doing it. So I yelled for my husband and then he took off running around the back of my house.
Okay, give me just 1 minute. Stay on the line with me.
Okay.
October 9, 2019, 21 hours, 50 minutes, 28 seconds.
And that was North 1900 East?
Yes.
Okay.
October 9, 2019, 21 hours, 50 minutes, 43 seconds.
In what direction he was going?
He went behind my house and it's so dark out there, and I just went in the house and got my husband and son, and then they went out and looked, and he was long gone by then.
Okay.
So he was on the north side of my house, is where he went to get away.
Okay.
He didn't say anything, or he just kept like he was holding the gun, like he was, had a rifle and just shooting at me. So, but nothing came out of the gun either, so I don't think it was loaded.
Johnny, he's playing it again
Okay, what is your
because
name?
My name is Tammy Daybell.
he wanted the
Okay, I
Going
will
to
pass
hear
your
again.
information on to my deputies. We actually just had a previous call about this individual, so they're out in the area looking now.
Okay, yeah, I think it was my son-in-law who lived diagonal from us that called you guys already.
Oh,
So we
okay.
just wanted to make sure it got reported. So
Let's see. And what's your son-in-law's name?
Joseph Murray.
Okay, yep, it was him.
Okay.
So, all right, I have a deputy that will be out at your home here shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
he wanted to show that part that she said he was holding it like a rifle.
So we can agree then that the 911 call would speak for itself, right?
Correct. Having a rifle and shooting at her.
Having a rifle and shooting at her.
Having a rifle and pointing at her.
Is that what you heard?
Yes.
Okay, but I guess we can let the jury make a determination about what they heard, right?
Yes.
Now, we previously talked to, and Judge, I'm going to ask to publish 14A.
All right, do you have that with you?
I do, and it's already been admitted and accepted.
Okay, 14A may be published.
Exactly, Johnny, that she's a real human being. This is an interesting exhibit.
Now, officer, you're looking at what's been marked as Exhibit 14A, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, there's a big black round thing on the top of that gun. Do you know what that is?
That's a hopper.
Okay, and it's pretty distinct, right?
Yes.
Pretty clear to identify that it's a hopper on the top of a paintball gun, correct?
Yes.
So if someone is in a situation where they're looking at something and they're clearly able to determine that there's a hopper on the gun, this would be a situation where they'd be able to clearly see that there's a hopper, correct?
If they're clearly able to see that, then
Right.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and you could hear she was a bit breathless there.
So if someone through their testimony talks about being able to clearly see that there's a hopper on a gun, that's a distinguishing that's a distinguishing feature of a paintball gun. Is that correct?
If they clearly see it, yes.
Yeah, and if they're able to identify the fact that a particular paintball gun has a hopper and they can identify the hopper, it's obviously they saw a hopper, right?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Okay. But you spoke about it a little earlier where you said they're now designing paintball guns that look like rifles.
Yes.
And they're being very creative in doing that, correct?
Yes.
In fact, I would suggest to you that there are instances where people have manufactured paintball guns to make the scopes on a gun look like a hopper. Correct?
Are you suggesting that to me
Yeah,
or asking?
yeah, I'm suggesting that, asking you that.
Possibly.
Possibly. Okay. So if that were one of those special guns where they created a gun that had something on it that looked like a scope, someone could confuse the difference between a scope and a hopper, right?
Yes.
But if someone specifically says they saw a hopper on a gun, there's no
Objection, Your Honor, this is going to call for speculation.
Sustained.
clearly that was a picture of a hopper on the gun, right?
During the day, yes.
Yeah, and you're able to distinguish that very clearly, right?
In the daylight, yes.
Oh, you telling me that there's a difference? You wouldn't be able to tell that in the night on the back of a porch with a light on?
Objection,
Oh.
Your Honor, argumentative.
Sustained and strike the answer.
I like
Are you
this
aware
because
that there are
too.
lights on the front of the garage of the Daybell residence?
I was aware on that last call you played that Tammy Daybell said it was dark outside.
Right. But you didn't hear anything about the fact that there were lights out there or that the garage and the driveway was illuminated, right?
I didn't hear any of that.
Okay.
Right.
I didn't know if I heard an objection or not, Judge, to that.
Withdrawn.
Go ahead.
Okay. What you did note that she identified it as a paintball gun, didn't she?
She used that with the rifle and gun.
Okay. And whooshing sound, right?
Correct.
Because Chad told her to. Jesus.
Now, Judge, I believe that Exhibit 16 was previously admitted. If I could have the bailiff bring me Exhibit 16. And Judge, if I could just have a moment, please.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I just can't get over how when Pryor says certain things, when he says right, he's not saying right. He's saying say yes, say yes, say yes. That's what he's saying. He's like, right? You better say yes.
Now, Officer, are you aware as part of your investigation that Tammy Daybell sent out a Facebook posting to what she described as the Friends of the Salem Ward? Do you recall looking at something like that?
I remember she sent something out on that, yes.
Okay, okay. You don't have a recollection of what it said though, probably, correct?
Not exactly.
And Judge, could we publish Exhibit 16?
You may.
I have it ready to go, Judge, whenever the clerk is ready. Okay, I don't know if I can expand that or not, Judge. No. Are you able to read that, officer, on your monitor?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. Would you read that email for me?
Something really weird just happened, and I want you to know so you can watch out. Had gone home and parked him out in our front driveway. As I was getting stuff out of the back seat, a guy wearing a ski mask was suddenly standing by the back of my car with a paintball gun. He shot at me several times, although I don't think it was loaded.
Okay, you can stop there. So again, and this email that you said you reviewed was to the Friends of the Salem Third Ward. Do you know what the Salem Third Ward is?
Are you referring to the Facebook or the email?
Facebook, the Facebook here that was sent out.
Okay. I'm not just a church ward,
Okay,
the Salem Third Ward.
okay. You've heard of that before? You've heard
Yes.
of the Salem Third Ward before?
Well, I'm assuming it's their church they go to out that way.
Okay, you don't know how large of a ward that is or how many members they communicate to, right?
I don't.
Okay, but you do know that she got on there at this point and discussed the incident that took place, correct?
Yes.
And did she ever use the term rifle in this Facebook posting?
No.
Did she ever use the word gun?
No.
But she did use the word paintball gun, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Judge, I'm done with that. Thank you.
Tammy saying the word paintball
And Judge, I have,
doesn't make it a paintball gun.
I know,
And it's incredibly irritating for him to spend this much time on this. We've always known this about Pryor.
if I could just have a minute again, Judge, I apologize.
It's fine.
Pryor has high concentrations of petty inside of him. He's always prone to stretching out petty for so long. And this is a prime example. This paintball thing, the case does not hinge. The case does not hinge on whether it was a paintball gun or not. If he's able to prove, let's say he's able to prove that it was a paintball gun, it doesn't mean that all the other bad facts go
Judge,
away.
I need the court to advise whether or not Exhibit 15 has been admitted or offered for admission.
We'll check. No.
And I guess I have to pull this out and Judge ask that the court, I think this is by stipulation of the parties. Exhibit 15 has been stipulated by the parties to be admitted, and I'd ask it to be marked and accepted with the court, Exhibit 15.
All right, I'll confirm with the state.
Yes, Your Honor, I believe that this is a segment of the data recovered from Tammy Daybell's phone, and the contents of her phone have been stipulated to.
Okay, so Exhibit 15 is offered and will be admitted.
That must have been a horrifying experience, PKC. I'm sorry that happened to you. And I'm sure that a
Now,
lot of
before I
us
go
in the
into
chat-
Exhibit 15, Officer, you discussed that you did a lot of discovery and looking at what was the term you used? What?
Geofencing?
Geofencing. And when you're looking at phone records and emails and Facebook postings, sometimes there's a reference after the time that indicates the letters UTC. Are you familiar with what UTC means?
I've heard the term. I'm trying to think. I believe it's a couple hours off of certain time zones.
Okay. And are you aware that in Idaho, it's a universal time zone equation that they put together, right? So that the whole world is on the same time zone, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Right. And are you aware that Idaho is when there's a UTC, you have to actually subtract 6 hours from the time that's noted on a UTC. Does that sound about right?
I know you had to subtract, I'm not sure if it's 6 hours, but yes, I do know you had to subtract some hours.
Do you have any reason to believe that it's not 6 hours?
No.
Okay. Okay. Now, I'd like to go back to the call from Tammy Daybell. And if you don't remember, it's fine. But the call to 911, do you recall what time that call was made? Is
I
there
know-
some kind of report you could refresh your recollection with quickly?
Well, I know there was two that came in, one from Joseph Ryan and Tammy. I believe hers was around 9:41.
Okay. Okay.
Joseph
And then
Murray.
hers was 9:41
I believe so.
or 9:51, somewhere in there.
I'm not 100% sure on that, so I guess I can't testify truly on that.
Okay. Okay. But it was clearly after 9:30 though.
Objection, Your Honor. The officer just said he couldn't testify to that.
Sustained.
Okay. Okay. Judge, I'd like to put up Exhibit 15 for publication.
You may publish.
I'm ready, Judge, whenever the clerk is. I'm showing it, Judge. I'm not sure what.
All right, we'll see if we could get someone to maybe take a look at.
Oh, I think we're there.
Okay.
I just had to wiggle a little. I had to wiggle the cords a little bit. Okay, so can you see that from your screen, officer?
Yes.
Okay. And I would represent to you that this was off of Tammy Daybell's account, stipulated by the parties as a retrieval of her Google searches. Can you read the very first one?
Search for a paintball gun,
Okay, and
paintball
then
guns.
we talked about the UTC and well, I guess I suggested it was 6 hours. You didn't really specify, but would you read October, the date of when that was done, that Google search was done?
October 10th, 2019.
Okay, October 10th, 2019. And the time on that, the UTC time would be what?
If it is 6 hours, it would be 9:29.
On the 18th.
Correct.
Okay.
On the 10th.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. All right. So the day that this incident took place was what?
October 9th.
Okay. And the UTC, if it goes back 6 hours from AM at 3:29 AM on the 10th, going back 6 hours, wouldn't that put us at 9:30 on the 9th?
Yes.
Okay, so at actually, let's
Well-
be clear, 9:29 on the 9th, right?
Yes.
Okay, so at 9:29 on the 9th of October, there was a Google search by Tammy Daybell searching out paintball guns, correct?
Correct.
Now, I don't remember seeing a discussion with Officer Coulter in I guess it was his second report, where he talked about that Tammy Daybell did a Google search on paintball guns.
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel's testifying.
Did you see that?
Wait,
So
objection pending
What?
and sustained.
Did you see a reference in Officer Coulter's second report about Google searches at 9:29 on the 9th of October?
No.
Okay, well,
what?
your previous testimony was that Tammy Daybell made a 911 call sometime 9:41 is what you recalled. But the Google search occurred at 9:29. Is that what you see?
Yes.
So what we can gather from that is that Tammy Daybell, after this incident, did a search of paintball guns and then 10 minutes later called 911, right?
Right,
Yes.
because Chad.
Do you remember what the
Right,
date of the
remember.
Facebook posting was when she posted that Facebook?
I do not recall that date.
Okay. And then let's move down a little bit.
Okay. Did
The
you
next
like-
one.
Okay.
Search for an airsoft guns,
Okay. And again, the time.
October 10th, 2019 at 3:29.
So basically, if we go back to UTC time, we're back at around 9:30 again, right?
Yes.
So her Google searches at that point, and just for everybody's edification, we don't need to go down the other ones because they're not relevant to this, but the first two, the first one was a paintball gun search at 9:29, right?
Yes.
Then she looked for an airsoft gun search at 9:29, right?
Yes.
Did she ever look for a rifle?
She did not.
Did she ever look at any other shotgun?
She did not.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bailiff.
It's so easily explained. It's just that they can't bring that up on cross because it's not in the scope.
Nobody was there from your agency at the time of this incident with Tammy Daybell and this person. Is that correct? That she was allegedly shot at,
We responded to that.
but nobody was
Because-
there when it occurred.
Correct.
And in fact, Chad wasn't there either, right?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Well, you know from the report that Tammy talked about Chad and Garth coming out afterwards, correct?
Yes.
And there's no indication at the time of this occurrence that there was anybody other than a masked man and Tammy Daybell. Is that right?
And in Tammy's email, Chad and Garth.
Well, Chad and Garth were inside the house, right?
Yes.
Okay. So at the time of this alleged shooting, the two people would be a masked man and Tammy Daybell. Would that be fair?
Outside of the residence, yes.
Okay. So the best person to determine what type of instrument this was would be one of the people who was there at the time, right?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Overruled.
Your Honor, may I voir dire nave objection?
Well, just the way that question was phrased, I'm overruling that. It was just of the two. Go ahead and re-ask the question, Mr. Pryor.
The best person to determine what type of instrument that was would have been Tammy Daybell, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
Grounds.
It calls for speculation. May I have voir dire native objection?
Go ahead.
Detective Kaikamanu, did you ever have an opportunity to speak with Tammy Daybell?
No.
Did you ever determine her knowledge of firearms?
No.
Do you know her experience with paintball guns?
No.
Do you know her experience with firearms?
No.
So do you know if she'd be able to tell the difference?
No.
Your Honor, I'd object to that. It calls for speculation.
All right. Well, I am going to overrule it on the speculation objection, but of course you'll be able to redirect Ms. Blake.
Yeah. So again, you actually corrected me. There are two people there that would know what type of instrument that would do. Two people that would be the best people to identify what kind of instrument, correct?
Correct. One of the two.
Yeah, the person in the ski mask would be one. We don't know who that was, right?
Correct.
And Tammy Daybell.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Right, Crystal? I mean, it is just,
Officer, Judge, I'd like to now go through on the Elmo Exhibit 107, if I could.
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We'll allow that to be published. It's already been admitted.
I mean, the dynamic of their marriage was that he was the boss
And obviously, during your
and the prophet.
talk with the prosecuting attorney, this has already been admitted. And you went through that. You recall that, right?
Yes.
Now, as part of your examination, you provided records from Fremont County Sportsman's Club, right?
Yes.
And you did the start date of sometime of 10/16. Is that right? Is that what you recall?
The start date of
Of when the documents that you provided to the prosecuting attorney. The first entry on there, it looks to be about 10/16. Am I mistaken?
I'd have to relook at those.
Okay, Judge, could we show this to the witness to refresh his recollection? When you're done, just hand it back. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
I mean, once the jury puts all of the stuff together, I don't know.
And Your Honor, may the state know what's being shown to the witness?
Which exhibit did you just
It's
reference?
their exhibit of the entries to the visits to the Sportsman's, I don't want to misstate the name of the organization, the Sportsman's Gun Club.
Thank you.
That is exhibit 390A. I'm sorry, 396A.
So with the totality
Okay.
of
Okay,
all
and
of
if I could
that
have that back.
behavior, I don't understand how they think that this paintball gun could matter. That she characterized it as a paintball gun when she's obviously a thumb, right?
No, I'm looking at this exhibit and it appears that it starts on 10/16. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, now, did you happen to take the time to look at the entries prior to that time?
Prior to 10/16, yes.
You did.
Yes.
And Alex Cox arrived in Idaho from what you learned from your investigation about when?
On the 1st of September.
So on the 1st of September. So after arriving, as part of your investigation, what did you discover from September 1st to October 15th in terms of the number of times that Alex Cox visited the gun range?
Give those dates one more time.
September 1st we'll just make it October 15th.
So Alex Cox, from my knowledge, was at the gun range in St. Anthony from October 7th to the 16th.
Okay. And you don't have any entries of him being there in September?
Not at the Fremont County gun range, no.
Do you have him at any other gun range in the month of September?
I believe there were some in Rexburg, Idaho.
Okay. And when you say some, that would indicate that there were more than 2 or 3. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So he'd had a habit. You also had an opportunity to review the searches of Alex Cox on his computer as well, correct?
I don't believe on his computer.
You
no.
didn't review any of that?
I reviewed some of the Homer J. Maximus. I'm not sure if that was off of his computer or not.
Okay. But as part of the Homer J. Maximus, are you aware that Alex Cox had been looking at weapons as early as 2017?
I was not aware of that early, no.
Okay. Well, how early were you aware of when he was looking at weapons?
September, October of 2019.
And that's because that's when you went, that was your reference point. September 1st is when you started your reference point, right?
What I looked at, yes.
Yeah. So you didn't really go back and look at all of the searches that Alex Cox conducted prior to September of 2019, right?
I did not.
Okay. Okay. But you are aware that Alex Cox has a history of engaging in the use of guns or other weapons on folks, right?
Objection, Your Honor. States facts not in evidence.
Overruled.
Are you aware, and I'll rephrase that, you're aware of the situation regarding Brandon Boudreaux, right?
Yes.
And you're aware that it's alleged that Alex Cox at a long distance shot at Brandon Boudreaux, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you're aware of Charles Vallow, correct?
Yes.
You're aware that Alex Cox took a gun and at close range murdered Charles Vallow, correct?
Yes.
And you're also aware that in both of those instances, Chad Daybell has not been criminally implicated in either of those cases. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Chad Daybell has not been charged in either of those cases. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are you aware of any other instances where Alex Cox engaged in conduct towards other people with the use of any kind of a weapon?
Of a firearm?
Any kind of a weapon?
I know that there was an incident with Lori's.
Objection, Your Honor. May we approach?
Yes.
You know what doesn't make sense to me is why spend so much time on the description of the gun when he could have just blamed it on Alex Cox like he's doing right now. I mean, if he's just going to pin everything on Alex Cox, then just pin everything on Alex Cox. So maybe it was just Alex Cox doing yet another, stupid gunplay move. Why does and it's clear that based on his history. And now that he's been charged with all of these issues with guns, it's stipulated that Alex Cox is this bad guy with guns, right? So why isn't Pryor just putting this incident on Alex as well, not connected to Chad, rather than harping on the frickin' description of the gun? It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, you guys tell me, am I missing something? Is there some other is there some other connection between the gun and the and Chad that I'm missing? I mean, unfortunately, there are just so many other bad facts surrounding this situation. The fact is that she ended up dead 10 days after this incident. The fact is that she was declared dark at some point. The fact is that other people who were declared dark ended up dead. Absolutely, truth junkie. Grasping at whatever he can, but the thing is that that is such a stupid thing to grasp onto. If he's going to be grasping onto Alex as the guilty one, then grasp onto Alex as the guilty one, and the description of the gun does not help that. Because unless they can prove that Alex bought a paintball gun, you know what I mean? Is that going to be like the Perry Mason moment? And here's a receipt of Alex Cox buying a paintball gun. And so it was Alex Cox all along, and there's no connection. And you can't show a connection between, I just don't get it. And I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an investigator. I'm just a YouTuber who happens to have a lot of experience in life and a lot of professional experience. Been covering true crime for like 4 years now. I just don't get it. I have common sense, as do a lot of other people in my chat. I just don't get it. And since this little exhibit break seems to be taking a minute, look at this beautiful drawing. Look at this beautiful drawing by Johnny, you all. She says that it was inspired by me and our chat. And perhaps in the chat she can explain it more. Is that a self-portrait of you, Johnny? Is that you in the foreground in the drawing?
All right, thank you, counsel.
Got dancing ladies around you?
We took up a evidentiary ruling outside the presence of the jurors. Mr. Pryor, you may continue with your cross-examination.
Isn't it
So,
beautiful, Tess Matt?
We talked a little bit about the fact that you're aware that Alex visited the gun range in September of 2019, right?
Yes.
You're not aware of whether he had visited or went to any gun ranges when he was living in Arizona 6 months prior. You didn't look into that. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, officer, on your, this will be tricky. On your Homer J. Maximus, you talked about a number of searches and you recall that, correct?
Yes.
Oops, Judge, this is the Elmo, I'm sorry.
And what is it you're publishing?
Uh,
Okay. This is part of exhibit 107B.
And this talked a little bit about the gun and the distance and everything else, correct?
Yes.
And what I'm wondering about is that the first one that says the Grendel drop 100 to 200 yards, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now Tammy Daybell's driveway, and you described it as the distance between the end of the desk there and towards this first section here, correct?
Yes.
And for a clear record, we're 30 to 40 feet.
Sure.
Okay. Now, if we do math and look at 100 yards, how many feet is 100 yards? Do you know?
Well, there's.
I can help if you'd
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. Help me out.
Yeah, me too. I had to look at, no, I didn't have to look it up. It's 3 feet per yard.
Correct.
Okay, I'm sorry, and I know you weren't, that's not fair. It's 3 feet per yard. Okay, you know
Yes.
that, right? So if we're looking at a Grendel drop, we start at 300 feet, right?
Okay.
And then if we go to 200 yards, we go to 600 feet. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Now, none of those feet distances really apply to Tammy Daybell's driveway, right?
Not her driveway.
Okay. And then the 100 yards to 300 yards is the same thing, 300 feet to 900 feet, correct?
Yes.
So obviously what he was looking at this point is the distance and how to put a rifle and the amount of drop after you shoot it, that the bullet drops after a certain distance, right?
Yes.
And when was this in October?
This was searched October 8th.
Okay. And, when I looked at this, I was curious, is there any indication that Alex Cox purchased a big game hunting license in October?
That I am unaware of.
Okay. And would you agree with me that October is also hunting season for various big game?
It is hunting season, yes.
Okay. And then he looked at, and you could use a Grendel for a hunting gun, is that correct?
You could, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And if you were to purchase pants and just trying to just conceal yourself while you were out hunting, it wouldn't be inappropriate to buy different various suits to conceal yourself. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Oops. I'm grateful to whoever put the tape up there. And then we go to October 10th. How to prepare your AR for cold weather. Now, if you're out shooting and you're out hunting, and I'm not suggesting we use an AR for hunting, but in October, when you're out hunting, that's a cold time to go hunting, isn't it?
Yes, it could be cold.
Okay. Okay. And then we talked a little bit about the ghillie suit, and potentially that could be something that could be used as a hunting outfit when you are out in the game hunting, right?
Could be, yes.
Yeah. Well, you can buy those at Sportsman's Warehouse or Cabela's or any of those stores, right?
Yes.
You looked into that, and that's where you get them, right?
You can, yes.
Yeah, Sportsman stores for outdoor activities in October, right? Right?
Yes, you can buy them there.
Okay. 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 Now, what we did is then we looked at a FBI simulation of shooting a 5.56 through car doors and walls. And a 5.56 is a type of a bullet, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's a specific bullet. And what it appears is there was a search to see what kind of a bullet would go through car doors and walls, correct?
Yes.
And then you would also see what kind of caliber under that would penetrate a windshield, correct?
Yes.
Now, we know that the allegations about Alex Cox is that he took a shot at Brandon Boudreaux, correct?
Yes.
And in relation to Lori Vallow, Brandon Boudreaux was Lori Vallow's, no, Melanie Pulowski was Lori Vallow's niece, right?
Yes.
And she was married to Brandon Boudreaux.
Yes.
So Brandon Boudreaux was the male spouse of Alex Cox's niece, Melanie Pulowski, right? Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So Alex Cox took a shot at the male member of the relationship between Melanie, Lori's family, and the male, right?
Yes.
And then Alex Cox murdered
Oh my God.
husband number 4 by taking a gun and shooting him at close range. And that was Lori Vallow's husband number 4, correct?
Yes.
I'm not sure what husband it was.
Okay. Well, she's had
But-
5, right?
Okay.
Well, do you know that?
I'm not 100% sure on how.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Okay. So, but we do know that Alex Cox is accused of murdering Charles Vallow, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when I go down, you testified that Chad Daybell, well, before we get that, it would seem that, would you agree with me that it would seem that the searches here, the Google searches, would suggest that Alex Cox is looking at shooting at some sort of a Dodge Dakota vehicle. Would you agree with me?
Yes.
And it looks like it wasn't for target practice. It was to do some harm, correct?
I don't know what his intent was, but it's not target practice, I would
Right.
say.
Well, it wouldn't be target practice if you're trying to penetrate a windshield, is it?
No.
And it isn't target practice if you're asking how thick is the 22 gauge steel on a Dodge Dakota, right?
No.
So apparently, what Alex Cox had in mind was to do some harm for whoever is driving a Dodge Dakota, correct?
Yes.
Are you aware that Chad Daybell was the one driving the Dodge Dakota?
Objection, Your Honor. Facts not in evidence.
Stand.
Are you aware of the 2 vehicles that Chad and Tammy Daybell owned?
I'm aware of a Dodge Dakota that was registered to both of them.
Right. But you don't have any specific information about whether or not it was Chad who was the primary driver of the Dodge Dakota, right?
I don't have any facts that he was the primary driver now.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, these witnesses have pretty much been very
Now, as part of your investigation, you talked a little bit about phone records, right? I'm sorry, phone records, Alex's records in terms of his location, right?
On Homer J. Maximus device.
Okay,
yes.
and you looked at that. What was the device that you were reviewing to determine that?
I'm not sure what device that was.
Okay, okay. All right, then we'll save that for another day. Now, Judge, previously, we stipulated and the court entered exhibit number 14. I'd like the court's permission to go over exhibit 14 with the witness.
All right. Has that previously been admitted?
Judge, I have it here with the stamp on it. I think we had already established it.
Yes, Your Honor. I think,
Established and stipulated to it, Judge. I'm sorry.
and the state had reviewed this. It's my understanding these are the extracts from Tammy Daybell's phone or contain extracts. I think it's actually a police report referencing those extracts from her phone.
Okay, it's been admitted, so it may be published.
If I could just have a moment, Judge, I'm sorry.
Uh-oh, new exhibit, 10 minutes, technology. Yeah, what I like about this witness is that when Pryor is trying to throw in his narrative, this guy gets he slips his facts
Judge, I'm
in
ready.
really in a slick way.
Your Honor, I hate to do this, but can we briefly approach?
Yes.
Of course. Sidebar. We got a sidebar. Your Honor, can we briefly approach?
Okay, that's okay. Okay, okay, right? Okay, right? Okay, right? Right? Okay, okay. Okay.
Your Honor, I would like to sidebar here. Is this, Your Honor, sidebar?
There's no jury here.
Okay, well, that's
So
me.
you do a sidebar to keep a jury from hearing things, but there's no jury here. So
Okay, then
if you have an objection, make an objection.
I have an objection. Shut up. I have a right to object, I believe, Your Honor.
You have the right to get held in contempt of court. And that's what's going to happen if you don't shut up.
And that's what's going to happen if you don't shut up. And that's what's going to happen if you don't shut up. Oh, man. Is it just me? Oh, Harlot, YouTube's been undergoing some major updates, I think, because there's been a lot of glitching. There was one night, maybe last week, when like people were talking about being live and it would say it would say that they had like 100 likes, but it would say there's nobody in chat. But there would be people chatting in the chat, but the counter would say nobody. And then I think you all were talking about how you were all unsubscribed from a bunch of channels. So usually when that type of stuff is happening, there are major updates going on. And I know that they've just talked about updating their terms of service. Usually when they update their terms of service, that also means that there's major product updates as well that have to go with the terms of service. So that's weird, Harlot.
All right, counsel, before publishing that particular exhibit, we just redacted an identifier mark from that we caught. So you may go ahead and publish when you'd like, Mr. Pryor.
Now, officer, on this particular document, I would represent to you that this is one of your reports. Do you, on the little bit that you're seeing, do you recognize that?
Yes.
So on March 16th, you received information from Google LERS. What's LERS?
Google Lears Law Enforcement.
Okay. And you asked for information attached to this, and this was information that you were getting regarding Tammy Daybell's email account. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Did you get the entire email account?
Yes.
And did you go through the entire email account?
Yes.
and you reviewed all of the emails and you made a determination as to which ones you in particular felt were relevant to this case. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay. And then you said after looking at the emails, you didn't include the ones that were significant. And there were photos, emails, chats, the information that I found relevant to the investigation, you see attached here, correct?
yes.
Okay. And then would you read the line that starts in the email folder are chats? Would you read that one for me?
In the email folder are chats between Tammy and Mark while on his mission. Want me to read the whole?
If you would, if you don't mind.
There are also chats between Mark, Tammy, Seth, Garth, and Emma. During some chats, it is very clear that Chad is messaging. In the chats, it is also clear that chats are coming from Tammy's email.
Okay. And then I'll go to the next line saying, looking over the inbox of Tammy's email, it shows, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Let me get a record, right? Looking over the inbox of Tammy's email. It shows the first section as chats, mainly with Mark, while he is on his mission. In the chats, it does not show the time or date when the chats are taking place, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then the line below, why don't you read the line below for me?
While looking over the chats, there are several that lead me to believe Tammy, along with Mark, Emma, Garth, Seth, and Leah, have knowledge of the belief in light and dark people that Chad talked about and believed.
Okay. So what I gather from that is your assessment in the reports that after you reviewed all of the emails and you said you reviewed them all.
Yes.
That's a significant job.
Yes.
And in reviewing all of those, you came to the conclusion that the Daybell, Tammy Daybell, Chad Daybell, and his 5 children had knowledge of the belief in light and dark people.
Yes.
And the light and dark is a religious reference that's mentioned by Chad, right?
Yes.
It's mentioned by other people in this case, right?
Yes.
It's also mentioned to some extent in predominantly most religions. Would you agree with that?
Say that again.
Predominantly in most religions, there's a reference to light and dark, right?
I can't testify that. 'Cause I
Okay.
don't know all the religions.
Okay. And then the religious practice that these folks practice, that Tammy and the children and Chad practices, of what faith?
LDS.
Okay. Okay. Then we go on and if you would, I'll take a look at the next one where it says during the chats, Mark's camera was not working and Tammy informed him that his camera was cursed and Dad was removing it, right?
Yes.
Okay. In more chats, Mark asked if anything was found or notable in him when he was body coded. I'm not sure what body coded means. Do you have any knowledge of what being a body or body coded talks about?
No.
Okay. Okay. But it was Mark who was talking about the body coding. Would that be your assessment?
Yes.
Okay. And then Tammy responds, you has a lot of weapons, negative chords and curses, plus trapped emotions. We cleared out quite a bit. We'll do that more regularly for you. So second to the last sentence says we cleared it out, right?
Yes.
That would you believe that was Tammy and Chad who were clearing out these negative chords and curses?
In this email, yes.
Okay. And then we'll do that more regularly for you. And again, we'll do that more regularly for you. That implies that it was both Tammy and Chad talking about helping them clear out these weapons, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then we go down to the next one and it starts with on another chat, Chad said, Mom and I taught 12-year-old Sunday school yesterday. Canyon Scott's actions Confirmed, he is 4.2 dark. You see that?
Yes.
Do you have any knowledge as to whether Canyon Scott is dead or has been murdered, or any investigation into that kind of a matter?
I have no knowledge of that.
Okay. And do you know who Canyon Scott is?
I do not.
Okay. But obviously, it's someone who attends church or attends Sunday school where Chad and Tammy went to their Sunday school, right?
Yes.
So we could presume that it was someone in um, Fremont or Madison County, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then it goes on, I will enjoy watching his growth to world terror and domination. And then Emma replies, I like Canyon though. I'll slow down. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The next line is, I will enjoy watching his growth to world terror and domination, right?
Yes.
Emma replies, I like Canyon though. Tammy and Chad reply, unfortunately, he's already influencing Will Dowling. Who's Will Dowling? Do you know?
I do not.
Okay. Then Mark goes, I like Jose and I can't pronounce that last name, Ojeda also. Then Mark says, darkness is interesting. And then Tammy and Chad both say, maybe they're influencing you too. They are charming, right?
Yes.
So we don't have any information about Jose Ojeda or anything about him, any criminal activity associated to his demise, right?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Judge, it's 12 o'clock. Judge, it's 12 o'clock. I don't know. This may take a while.
Sure.
It's up to the court.
Yeah, let's
obviously.
take our lunch recess. We try to do that at noon for timing of things, so that'll work out well. We are stopping right here about noon. We'll try to resume further testimony 1 o'clock and take the lunch break now.
And Judge, may I leave my stuff up here?
Yeah, we'll secure the courtroom and you can leave that there, Mr.
Thank you,
Clerk.
Your Honor.
All right, we
All righty. I'm not sure exactly why they were going through that in terms of, the family being in on the whole thing, but it does sound like they were trying to, he was basically trying to say, well, they all agreed with it and all these other people were designated dark and they're not dead. So just because people were designated dark and they're dead doesn't mean that it was a conspiracy to murder. And I don't know, the legal way to argue that, but it seems like a silly premise. Just because the people who they gossiped about thinking they might be dark didn't end up dead doesn't mean there wasn't a conspiracy, when you can see that they financially gained from the people who did die. It's just that what Pryor is trying to do is take Chad he's distancing Chad from the death. He's distancing Chad from the idea that people died because they were rated dark, that he rated other people dark who didn't end up dying. Well, he also didn't financially gain stand to financially gain or romantically gain from those other people. And then he did gain. We just have to see, more direct ties to the activity of these people dying. And for me, with Tammy, it's that he's the last person to see her alive, really. She has bruises. He refuses an autopsy. She has to be exhumed. She was obviously smothered in her bed. Who else would have done that? you know? Who else was in the house? Anyway, those are all the things. Now I want to show you again the beautiful, beautiful drawing that our wonderful Johnny drew of that she says this was inspired by me and our chat. And I think she might have said it's not quite finished yet, but I'm not sure. But I want to show you another drawing that she sent me, and this is a drawing that she created of her boy. Look at that. Look at that beautiful drawing too. I so envy people who can draw like this. That looks like a freaking picture. That looks like someone actually took a photograph. It's insanely good. I think this is insanely good. I can't say enough about it. I really, seriously. Both of these drawings, I can't show them at the same time. I haven't put them together and to upload them. But I mean, I've shown you guys my level of drawing is, you know, stick figure. It is talent. Absolutely. Absolutely amazing. Did your boy already have his birthday? I know it was a birthday present for your boy, Johnny. Did he like it? Did he recognize himself? I love the bow tie. So I'm going to reschedule this for, I'm going to, you know, end the stream and start another stream. But I have a couple jokes to tell you. What do you call 15 lawyers buried up to their necks in sand? Not enough sand. Just we have to do court jokes, right? We got to laugh a little bit. This is such heavy this is heavy. These are heavy topics. What do you say to a lawyer with an IQ of 50? Good morning, Your Honor. None of these are correct. It's just funny to make fun of lawyers. I was married to a lawyer for a long time. He probably wouldn't find the humor in these. Why do they bury lawyers 100 feet into the ground? Because down deep, they're good people. What do you call a crow in a field attempted murder? I mean, I don't like jokes at victims' expense or, you know, other people's expense, but jokes at lawyers' expense, come on, especially if they're not super mean. Oh man, one more joke and then maybe a clip. What's the difference between a vulture and a lawyer? Wingtips. Oh God. Solo sock, it was actually extremely tedious. It was very extremely tedious. It was very tedious. And in fact, I think, you know, he he's a litigator too. He's not just a lawyer. He's not a contract lawyer. He's a litigator. He's the kind that goes into court and argues in front of the judge, and he's really, really, really good at it. So, but I'm also a persuasive person. I'm a persuasive person. That was my job, was to be persuasive. So I would imagine that it might have been interesting to be a fly on the wall for some of our arguments. Did he make you write everything down and prepare a case? Actually, I was more likely to say, we're going to write this down and sign it and agree. I was more like that. I mean, you know, when you're a lawyer, you don't really want to do you don't want to do your lawyering at home either. But at the same time, when you have done a profession for, you know, most of your life, like I have with communications and he has with lawyering, it's almost impossible not to think that way as well. So, that could, you know, I'm more of the creative type. He's more of the just heart, you know, let's just try to figure out how to talk around the facts type. You know, he wasn't really necessarily always looking for a way to get to the facts. He was looking to win the argument, right? That's the issue with lawyers. They're looking to win the argument, not necessarily get to the facts. So that's an issue with lawyers. I don't find lawyers, I've spent a lot of time around lawyers, especially in my profession. I don't find them to be crooked. I don't find them to be crooked like a lot of people portray them to be. That's not been my experience. So anyway, all right. I will see you all at 1 o'clock Mountain Time, which is in a little less than an hour. Enjoy yourselves, and congratulations, Johnny, on being such a great artist, drawer, whatever you want to call it, freehand drawer. I don't know. Congratulations. Anyway, I will see you all soon. Bye, and thank you for being here.